so much the more. Thou Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood and commanded him to be brought unto him. And when he was come near, he asked him, saying, What wilt thou that I shall do unto thee? And he said, Lord, that I may receive my sight. The word of God for the people of God. Everyone said, Amen. God bless you. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. I want to use for a thought. Amen. We may not even get through all of this. Amen. But we want to. Amen. Just for your consideration, use. Amen. For a thought. And Jesus stood still. And Jesus stood still. There's only just a handful of times recorded in Scripture, if you will, that Jesus, as he was on his journey, as he was on his way somewhere, that he stopped and stood still. And he paid particular attention to the needs of the people. You recall in the Scripture that Jesus, everywhere he went, there was a crowd, amen, that followed him. And there's only a handful of times that he stood and, amen, took particular attention to the need. And it usually surrounded, amen, the time that come to mind particularly, amen, is when someone was in darkness. This man was blind, and Jesus stopped what he was doing. He stood still and asked what the man needed, what he wanted God to do. There was another time when Jesus stopped, amen, and stood still, amen, another blind man, another one that was in darkness. And Jesus gave that man back his sight. It always centers around, amen, when Jesus would stand still and pay close attention that someone needed to be brought into the light. Someone needed their sight restored. Someone, amen, needed to be brought out of darkness into the marvelous light. There's an old song, we're talking about an old song. There's an old song we used to sing, that Jesus brought me out all right. He brought me out of darkness into the marvelous light. Jesus brought me out. I'm so glad he brought me out. All right. Anybody glad that he brought you out of darkness and into this marvelous light? Yes, sir. Jesus is on his mission here, and he is headed to Jerusalem. As I said, people are always following him, and more the crowd was gathering, and more people are joining the crowd as they travel. You know, a lot of people want to join in the crowd. They don't want necessarily a personal relationship with Jesus, but they want to join in. Y'all let them go with me. They want to join in with the crowd. They don't necessarily, amen, want the relationship, a personal relationship with the Lord, amen, but they want to be with the crowd. They want the crowd, the few want to follow him in true relationship. The caravan was growing, if you will, and they had come to see what this man Jesus can do. They would gather, and one lady, amen, as Jesus, amen, was paying attention to her need at the well. If you remember, amen, when Jesus fulfilled her need, she said, I'm going to run and tell everybody. Come see a man. Come and see a man. He not only, amen, can do marvelous things, but he told me all about myself. Yes, sir. He knew me better than I know myself. And I just met him for a little while, but he told me everything that's going on in my life. Come see a man and see what this man could do. Yes. Jesus is approaching the city of Jericho, and there is an incredible encounter that takes place here. And the Bible tells the story more or kill them and strike them with blindness. Hallelujah. And blindness is something that's a terrible thing. Here was a man completely without sight, amen, forced to sit by the roadside and beg day after day. In his day, there were no other ways for him to make a living. There was no social programs. There were no Salvation Armies. There were no any of these things that we know today to be common resources that you can go and get help. There was no such thing in that time. Amen. And suddenly he, amen, hears a crowd coming. They tell me, amen, that when you lose one of your senses, the other of your senses heighten. For instance, if you lose your sight, amen, your hearing heightens. The senses of your hearing heightens. If you lose your hearing, amen, your sense of touch and smell becomes elevated. Amen. So this man, amen, had the loss of his sight, amen, but his hearing was elevated. So he heard the crowd coming, even though they may have been far off. He heard the crowd coming. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Even sometimes here in the Synoptic Gospels, one of the writers will give you, amen, some details that the others don't give. And in this story is found, amen, this story is found in 3 of the Gospels, and it is Mark, amen, in his Gospel, who tells us what the man's name is. And this man's name is Bartimaeus. So here, Bartimaeus is without his sight, but his hearing is on point. There was a religious stigma against those, as I said, that were blind. We see it especially in John 9, where another man who was blind was healed. The disciples asked Jesus even, the Rabbi, who sinned? This man or his parents? Who was the one that sinned, causing him to be born blind? What was the problem? And there was somehow the thought that those that were blind deserved their blindness due to the sin in their lives. Well, that was the consequence of either their sin or what they thought was their sin or the sin of their parents. And the consequences of that was, amen, blindness. So here it is, amen, here he sits, amen, and Mark tells us that he was wearing an old garment. And this told people that he was a beggar. And I'm sure he felt that there was nothing that he could do to change the position in his life. Nothing he could do necessarily to change the plight of his life. 2 Corinthians 4:4 said, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. Some people are spiritually blind. And there's nothing that they can do about it until they first admit that they are blind. They got to admit. Somebody said the first solution to the problem is to first admit there is a problem. If you cannot admit that there is a problem, then the problem cannot be solved. So they have to admit, amen, that they are blind. Some are blind, amen, spiritually, in the spiritual sense, as Bartimaeus was born blind or was blind in the physical sense. We don't know necessarily that he was born blind. Amen. That was the situation with another. But amen, in Bartimaeus' case, we don't know for sure. The Bible does not declare whether or not this was a blindness from his birth or over time he developed a blindness. You know as well as I do, amen, that when we get older, amen, our sight gets a little weak. I don't want to admit it. But every now and then you'll notice, amen, even before you reach the age of 50, at least in my case, amen, I stared at computer screens for so long, amen, until it affected my eyes. I worked in a job where computers was, amen, my instrument, my tool, and I had to use computers, and I stared at the computer screen for so long until it started affecting my eyesight. And I had to go to the optometrist and get a pair of glasses. And at that point, I realized that at that age, my sight was getting a little weaker. And over the course of time, amen, your sight gets weaker and weaker. You may even notice, amen, sometimes your sight gets a little fuzzy. You may have what they call floaters, and you may start seeing little squiggly lines in your eyesight. And sometimes at night you don't see as well as you do in the daytime. It said that I try to get all I need to do done in the daytime, so that when night follows, I can be at home and I don't have to drive in the nighttime. So we notice when we get older that our sight gets a little dim. Amen. Our steps get a little shorter. We're not as strong as we used to be. And some of the things that we used to be able to do, as time wears on, we're not able to do those things. So here it is, that Bartimaeus, in his case, amen, was blind in the physical sense. And as we look at verse 36, amen, this man, amen, was perceptive. Even though his sight was dim, even though he could not see physically, he had a perception of what was going on around him. You'll notice, amen, if you come up upon somebody who has lost their sight, amen, when you start to approach them, they start getting, amen, a little fidgety. They notice that something around them, amen, is starting to change. The atmosphere, if you will, or their physical surroundings is changing, and they'll notice and say, who's that? Who is that? You may not touch them, you may not call their name, but they sense that you're there. Their perception is keyed up. Their perception is strong. Why? Because their sight is gone, but their awareness is on key. This man had good perception. He couldn't see what was happening, but he could hear what was going on. He's curious, and he asked the question. In verse 37 gives the answer, but he asked, what's going on? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. The person he had heard about is now standing in front of him. And then in stage 2, if you will, amen, his belief. Notice, amen, how he addresses Jesus in verse 38. He said, Jesus, son of David. Everybody else was saying Jesus of Nazareth. But this man, Bartimaeus, amen, he addressed him as Jesus, as son of David. And what did he say? He said, have mercy on me. This is interesting, if you will, because when he asked what was happening, the crowd said, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. The person he had heard about, was now, amen, close to him, right in front of him. That answer basically just tells him, amen, where Jesus grew up, Jesus of Nazareth. That just tells you where he's from. It's kind of like folks are saying, I'm from Texas, and I like the Dallas Cowboys. They enjoy these things, but that doesn't tell you everything about me. That just tells you one portion of their life. It just tells you one portion of who they are, where they come from. It doesn't tell you everything, but it just shines a highlight, if you will, on that particular aspect of their life. And instead of calling on Jesus as the man from Nazareth, Bartimaeus calls him, thou son of David. Knowing, amen, that he is referring to him as his messianic heritage. He's from the lineage of David. And he is one, amen, the one that the Old Testament had been pointing to as the Savior of the world. I hope you're praying with me today. This is more than just a man from a small town. with us. Hallelujah. Jesus, Son of David. Bartimaeus addressed him as Son of David. And stage 3 comes along and talks about Bartimaeus' boldness. Bartimaeus knew that he needed mercy. And because there was nothing that he could do on his own to change his plight in life, so he called on Jesus for mercy. Oh yes, in the first part of verse 39, we see that the crowd of people, amen, was annoyed by Bartimaeus. They wanted him to be quiet. Possibly there were, amen, those who were leading the way that were of some importance in the city. Maybe some officials in the city of Jericho, some, amen, on the city council, if you please, and some that were, amen, of the historical society, some, amen, as a part of, amen, the society to show off the city, and they wanted Jesus to see their town. And maybe there were some officials there, some highfalutin, amen, if you will, some suit-wearing, amen, officials in the city, and Bartimaeus is here making all this noise, and they wanted him to be quiet. They didn't want him to embarrass them when they're trying to show off their city. Much like today, amen, we want to clean up our city, amen, when officials are coming through. Maybe some people from the State Department, or maybe some from the national government, amen, coming through. Amen, we want the city to look good. We want to show off the good parts of the city. Amen, we don't want to show the homeless. We don't want to show, amen, the trashy part. We don't want to show all of the trash bags and the grocery bags that keep the line, the highway, but we want to show the good parts of the city. Much like what it might have been here, they wanted to show off their community. They wanted Jesus to see the good parts of their town. And here Bartimaeus is making all this racket, making up all this noise, hollering out, Jesus, Son of David, oh, have mercy on me. And now they're being interrupted by this beggar who they told him to be quiet. Settle down now, amen, but hush your mouth. And I love the second half of verse 39, which said that he shouted out all the more. The more they tried to quiet him down, the more they tried to make him hush, the more they tried to make him behave, the more he cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Oh, yeah. In the original language here, we learn the difference. The first time he spoke in verse 38, amen, it was more like a brief shout. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And then it became more like a scream. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. It became more like a scream. And if you're from the country, amen, it came like a holler. Holler, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy. Oh, my God. Have mercy on me. He cried out even the more. It was a cry of utter desperation, a bold attempt to get Jesus' attention. He broke